Hello there. Welcome to today's session of Every Mark Matters with Mr. McDonald. What we are looking at today is Edexcel History, Paper 2, the American West. And our question of the day is a really lovely, easy little 4-marker. Explain one consequence of the 1849 gold rush in California. So as you know, these questions are made up of three components. So let's start by breaking those down. If you want to just spend a moment pressing pause, just make sure you've got this question annotated in your history book or in your notebook. Let's have a look, and let's begin with a command phrase. And our command phrase of today is explain one. And all you need to do for this one, if it sounds ridiculous, you need to explain how. Alright? So that means when it comes to explaining how, you might find yourself using phrases like this led to, this meant that. And you might add in as a result, but I tend to use as a result for why. Our focus of the question is the 1849 California Gold Rush. So again, I'm going to write down focus up here. I'm going to underline the gold rush. And as always, spend a moment now annotating a focus with what you remember about the California Gold Rush. And welcome back. So I suppose what we could do is we could add in the fact that they were called the 49ers. Could add in about the fact that 300,000 people moved west because they were seeking gold. I always love the fact that it's actually the merchants that made money, not the miners. And that reminds me, just to use really good terminology, they're not miners, they're prospectors. So make sure you can use that language. And when it comes to the gold rush, well, what did it do? Did it keep people in the east, or did it motivate people to go west? Well, I would probably, as you've worked out, remember that it increased settlement, didn't it? I might just put a little arrow just right next to that. And then finally, our final component is our second order concept. And with this question, it is consequence. Now, when I teach this unit, what I tend to do is I tend to prioritise ensuring that my students learn 5 key consequences. And here's what I suggest you would do. Is underneath, I'm going to suggest that you just annotate the word consequence with the consequences I need you to memorise. So, the first one is conflict. Second one is cattle industry. Third one is crime. The fourth one is increased settlement. And then the fifth one is indigenous people's way of life. So now that we've done that, we're just going to have to work out which one matches this question. Well, there's a couple that probably match this question. Absolutely, increased settlement matches this question. You could also probably match in crime as well, as it led to an increased lawlessness. Now this question here is a lovely 4 marker, so that means you're only going to do 1 paragraph, and you're only going to spend 5 minutes. I'm going to switch to a different colour pen, as we'll have a look at our success criteria. So, here's my success criteria. I'm going to do it as a tick box. So let me get my tick box ready. Okay, so how to get 4 marks for this question? Well, here's what you need to do, is you need to match or state the correct consequence. I'm going to run out of space here. You've got to say why. Why does that consequence work? Then what you've got to do is you must have you've got to have 2 facts a paragraph. You've got to have a how, explaining how. You've got to have a why. You don't need a so what with this question. You've got to match the correct consequence and say why. You're going to have 2 facts a paragraph. You're going to say how and why. All right. You could aim to be as precise as you possibly can, but that's it. Nice and simple. It's just like an explain one way in medicine. It's all just a tick box exercise. Nice and easy. Okay. So 5 minutes. I'm going to suggest you press pause. Think about which consequence matches. Think about what knowledge you have about the 49ers. And spend 5 minutes now writing 1 consequence of the 1849 California Gold Rush. 5 minutes. See you shortly. Hello there, welcome back. So I'm hoping maybe you have spent 5 minutes there putting together an absolutely wicked paragraph explaining 1 consequence of the 1849 California Gold Rush. Again, what we were looking for is we were looking for you to match and state the correct consequence. We were looking for 2 facts a paragraph and a how and a why. Let's have a little look at my answer and we could self-assess yours comparing to mine. Let's have a little look at mine. So again, I'm conscious of my terrible handwriting, so allow me to read this out to you. 1 consequence of the California Gold Rush of 1849 was increased settlement. Now, what lots of students do is they will state the consequence, but they won't say why. So what I need to do now is I need to make sure I state why that consequence matches the question. This was because it led to 300,000 prospectors travelling west in search for gold in the California riverbeds. Right, so there is my first mark. So what I've done is I'm going to annotate this. So I've stated the consequence. And with this second sentence, I've explained why. Just double check that you've got that right. If you've only stated the consequence, believe me, the exam board will be really harsh to you and you won't get the marks for it. Okay? So make sure you stated why that consequence matches the events. I know that most of the 49ers failed to find gold, and that it was mostly the merchants and the landowners who got rich from the gold rush. Alright, perfect. So there's my second mark. This meant that the huge increase in population thanks to gold fever and the desperation and poverty led to a huge increase in crime, lawlessness and vigilante justice. So there is my how. So as you can see here, what I'm possibly rushed here. So there's plenty of knowledge there. So there's a bit of AO1 there. There's a bit of AO2 here. AO1 and AO2 are relevant to this question, but it's not essential. So I'd probably say, for my answer here, I'd be really harsh to myself, going back to my success criteria. Well, have I matched and stated the correct consequence and explained why? Yes, I have. Have I given 2 facts a paragraph? Well, I'm not so sure, you know. I don't think I have. I think I've only put 1 fact. So as you can see here, this is I know that. So there's only 1 fact, isn't it? Have I done my how and my why? This meant that the huge increase in population thanks to gold fever and desperation and poverty led to a huge increase in crime and lawlessness. So I certainly have I wouldn't even say I have a great deal of my how here. So I certainly say how. So if I'm being exceptionally harsh to myself, what I would say is I maybe call it a 2 out of 4. Looks a bit more like a Z there. Maybe if I get a generous examiner, I'd give it 3 out of 4. But the main thing here is, what do I do better? So I'm going to write down the phrase here, even better if. And what I'm going to add in is I need to add in a second fact. So I need to make sure I refer to what other facts that I can add in. You might be able to add in, but I might get a mark here possibly, which might put me up to 3 or 4. But we need to be really, the example are really prickly with this type of question, so we need to make sure we get the success criteria boxed off. Seems like an easy question. It's a really prickly one to mark though. So have a go at doing the same. Have you matched or stated the correct consequence? Have you given 2 facts a paragraph? Have you done your how and your why? This meant that and this led to, or as a result. And then as soon as you've self-assessed, we will call it a day for today. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you next time.